First, I'd like to congratulate Chandra Group for completing a decade. And secondly, I'd like to thank Dr. Chandrasekhar to give me a chance to stand here and talk to you. Today I'll be presenting two cases, not one. Both are actually very simple cases, but main thing what I wanted to convey is a physician's view of rheumatological cases. Generally, in our day-to-day practice, we get a lot of rheumatological cases. We somehow, all of us, what I have seen in my practice, we tend to mismanage those cases. Like if cases arthritis, then we keep on giving steroids, and cases will end up with Cushingoid features. And so, what I practice rheumatology, but through a physician's perspectives. So here are two simple cases. Case number one. Here's a 20-year-old female who came to me. She was actually, both the cases are of two different backgrounds, so I selected these cases. 20-year-old female who was laborer, very thin and malnourished patient and very poor. She came to me with swelling of left knee. Well, it was a recurrent episode. She had this complaint since last 3 years, and it was around third episode of swelling in the same knee. Now, on examination, what I found, on both the occasions, the knee had all the signs of inflammation, very tense, tender knee with lot of disabilities. And on last two occasions, both the occasions, it was diagnosed as tubercular effusion outside somewhere. Somebody did her pleural fluid analysis, which was not very conclusive. 85% of lymphocytes. ADA was also little doubtful, but not confirmatory, as we know. PCR was done on second occasion, which came out to be negative. And on both the occasions, she received 1 year courses for ATT, 2 courses actually she received. With recovery in the sense her few signs of inflammation would go, her swelling would recover, and some amount of pain and stiffness also will go, but she told that every time pain and stiffness would still persist, it won't go fully. Since last 3 to 4 months, she told that she is observed that she has got little bend in the knees and limp in her walk. She cannot straighten her knee, she cannot squat properly, and there were a lot of limitations and pain. When I examined her, she also told that she had, she never recorded on a thermometer, but she told that she gets up very fatigued, and she don't feel like doing anything. She gets up very tired. She feel febrile all the time. And examination, she had anemia, anemic she was. Well, peripherals, the CBC didn't show much of the last 2 occasions also CBC was done with anemia ranging from 7 to 9 G, but not very severe anemia. Well, she didn't have any history of tuberculosis or any contact to tuberculosis in the past. She didn't have any family history also. She didn't have any bleeding diathesis also. Well, actually, at this point, I would have done her synovial biopsy, but I don't know for what reasons she declined, and her parents also were very reluctant. So ultimately, she didn't get her synovial biopsy done. Fluid study was not very conclusive. Again, some inflammatory picture was there. Cultures were negative for all the infections we could do. And there were no crystals. I did it particularly, but there was no. Her inflammatory parameters like ESR, CRP were significantly raised. And well, in my college, I made it an academic case, so she could afford ANA by ALISA. but otherwise she was reluctant to doing ANA also, which came out to be positive. Anyway, it was 2 plus positive. So uric acid was also done, it was negative. Complement levels, well, I wanted to do suspecting some immunological phenomena. They were not affording, or neither my college would do it for free. And all the tests which I did were normal. Now, this case, as you can see, give me little pain, because first of all, this case won't fit in any criteria what we know, like no infections, no obvious reason for that, no, like this is out of textbook also. Textbook gives a lot of criterias for all these things. Maybe it's a rheumatological or non-rheumatological conditions, but it was not fitting in any criteria. I searched a lot, so that's why I chose this case for a discussion over here. So, I'd like to ask if anybody can suggest the diagnosis for this. X-ray was done, it was normal. Earlier it was done, the time she came to me it was not done. Like 2 months back when she started getting bent, she got it done, it was perfectly normal. Yes. Only single joint. Pardon? X-ray was perfectly normal. It was done around 1 month back.
How old? What's the age of the patient?
She was 20 years old.
20 years old,
Yes.
okay.
Manifestation started when she was around 17.5 to 18 years.
So it's basically an inflammatory monoarthritis.
Yes. Yes.
So recurrent with recurrent inflammation, with ANA being positive, correct?
Yes. ANA was positive.
It's positive.
Yes, one of the
one possibility is monoarticular variant of arthritis. What do you do with the ANA? Normal population, so you would like to ignore it. Okay. Or would be right. Well, could it be JCA? The age is a cutoff, but could it
again
be a
she won't fit in the criteria.
Late presenting JCA of a monoarticular type?
Yeah, it can be. That's why I didn't. And systemic examination was normal. Actually, what I did, I put her on small dose of steroid with NSAIDs. She responded nicely with that. So hesitantly, I started her on methotrexate, 7.5 I started, with physiotherapy. And actually she was doing well. For 2 months I observed her, she was doing pretty well. After that I escalated dose. Now she is on around 20 mg of methotrexate per week. But can it be a palindromic attack of... but again, definition wise, it should recover and occur in another joint to call it a palindromic.
See, the problem here is rheumatoid factor you said is negative.
Negative.
What's her anti-CCP?
Anti-CCP was negative. She didn't get it done.
She didn't get it. Now, the best suggestion, I think, probably there is a resource limitation which we need to work with. Actually, see, basically the one is synovial biopsy should help you. The second
she didn't give consent.
That's right. Second alternative possibility, if you do anti-CCP, say if anti-CCP is positive, it can swear you to put it as possibility of rheumatoid arthritis monoarticular. The next other possibility, if ANA is confirmably positive, say 2 plus or 3 plus positive, profile turns out to be negative or histone positive, it could be a pauciarticular JCA, which has come little late. Maybe it should have come before 16, but it's come 16, late. Presenting with monoarticular JCA. Did she any time had iridocyclitis or something of that kind?
She didn't have any of that.
Never had iridocyclitis. So that's a possibility which you need to keep. But it is certainly not infective, because it's less likely infective because it's going on from more than 2 to 2.5 years, 2 to 2.5 years, and there is no damages in the joint. X-ray wise, there is no damage as whatever it is.
Yeah, X-ray was
so because any of the infective arthritis, let it be septic or a tubercular or a fungal arthritis, going on for 2.5 years, not producing any bone changes, it is unlikely, because usually by the end of 6 months to 8 months, some bone injuries or damages are going to happen in infective etiology. So it's the duration itself exclude the possibility of infective etiology unless the third episode is an infective, other two are something else. Any comments?
She received ATT, she has received INH. Why not the ANA positivity because of the drugs?
That's a possibility.
That's also possible, sir. ANA can cause.
But when was the last course of this thing was done?
Around last course of ATT, sir?
Yes.
It was done around 1 year back.
1 year before ANA. So then you cannot associate it. So the ANA associated to any drug induced, once you withdraw the drug in 6 months, they disappear. Yeah, one other possibility is reactive arthritis, but peculiarly it is on the single joint. It's all the time on the same joint.
Yes,
That is something which is little unusual with reactive arthritis. But it's more common in rheumatoid. Monoarticular rheumatoid variants keep relapsing like that. So the only two things that if you can get our anti-CCP down will give us some little more clue in working it out the case.
Yes.
So thank you.
Second case which I am going to present is, again it's a case from a high profile person. It's totally opposite social backgrounds. 35-year-old obese male, obese he was a typical couch potato. He was executive in a very nice company working in Bangalore only. He was a sedentary worker. Actually, around 8 to 9 hours per day he used to sit, and the BMI was pretty high. He presented to me with lower backache of 6 months duration, and he was telling that it was lower back pain was typically inflammatory with typical morning stiffness which lasts for more than 1.5 to 2 hours. Then alternating buttock pains, difficulty in sleeping in the night, and all many features of ankylosing spondylitis, which we call inflammatory spondylitis, were there. And the last 2.5 to 3 months, he said that often he'll get swelling in both the knees and ankles, which would subside by taking NSAIDs, some Brufen or something he'll take, so it will go away. Well, he was recently detected diabetic type 2. As we know, diabetic type 2 also is getting commoner in younger populations. And he was also hypothyroid, which he was taking treatment for. He had a strong family history of arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. His father died due to rheumatoid arthritis, some complication. He could not tell, but maybe it was a CNS complication or something. And SLE, her younger sister was suffering from SLE, diagnosed. She was under treatment. And there was nothing significant in his past history. Straight away coming to investigations, CBC was normal, ESR and CRP were high, and as expected, I got his HLA-B27 done, which came out to be positive. ANA I got because her sister had SLE, so I got an ANA done, which came out to be negative by immunofluorescence. Rheumatoid factor again came to be negative, and this is a sacroiliitis, around grade 2 to grade 3 sacroiliitis he had. I started him on typical regime steroids, sulfasalazine and hydroxychloroquine while he was taking when he came to me. Then I observed him for 6 months. There was a significant reduction in morning stiffness, but he told that pain persists. But he would tell he never got better than 70%, 60%, 70%. His stiffness, it persisted. Then since last 3 to 4 months, he told that he's been having bad neck. He's having pain in neck since last 2 to 3 months, and plus he's having some difficulty in chewing things, especially little firm to hard things, and difficulty in opening his mouth. So there was little tenderness on examination on temporomandibular region. Then again I got his inflammatory markers done. It was not as high as previously, but again it was significantly high. Again CBC was normal, LFT chest X-ray was normal, and ANA, it was done outside, which came to be negative. It was again immunofluorescence. I got his lateral view done. You can see that a lot of bad bones are there. Some erosions also you can see. Now at this point I would like to stop for a little discussion. I didn't understand this case, so that's why I decided to put it over here.
Could it be an associated tuberculosis? Or are we missing a gout?
Sorry, ma'am, I did everything. Gout was also negative, and plus tuberculosis. Anyway, he didn't have any contact. His chest X-ray was perfectly normal, and earlier before coming to me, he got worked up. His PCR was done. It was negative, so there was no evidence of tuberculosis in the. Yeah, it was persistent. Like it used to trouble him. Pardon? No, treatment I started earlier for spondylitis. But
no, I mean to say he had a low back pain for which you had started sulfasalazine.
Uh-huh.
And how about the back neck pain which you were telling, whether it was there before treatment or it started after the treatment?
It started after treatment.
It makes a difference, because if it is persistent only in the neck, then probably it is related to seronegative spondyloarthritis what we are dealing. If it is not, then probably it is some mechanical, or he had lot of osteophytes over there.
Why don't you put the whole things as ankylosing spondylitis?
Probably looks like with the changes what are seen, probably looks like it is seronegative spondyloarthritis rather than thinking of second etiology as such.
Sir, I also thought about that, and I searched literature also, but barring one or two small studies, I couldn't get much on this sort of thing. Actually, the thing is, I did this anti-CCP which came out to be positive.
The reason for doing anti-CCP?
Actually, I didn't have any particular
The patient had a history of low back pain.
I was not going in any direction.
Okay.
So,
no, that is not an indication.
I thought something is better than nothing, because he was affording patient.
No, probably I think this is not an indication for doing anti-CCP, because patient has a classical history of low back pain, predominantly involving.
No, but TM joints and all is not very common in.
TM is known to get involved in.
I have not seen TM joint involvement.
It's also a common involvement.
TM joint is less common, but it can be involved. It's not that it may not be spared actually.
I have not seen, like as I told, I searched the literature also, but it said that maybe these two diseases can coexist somehow.
No,
but
yes. Now, how sure was the anti-CCP? What's the method, and how sure the anti-CCP report here actually?
So it was done actually in our place. It's usually done by Ranbaxy lab.
What's the cutoff? And
that I'm not sure, sir.
okay. Now, I mean, just why I asked this question is when there is some trouble in one or two of the labs which is happening. See, that basically what is happening is that I did see in some of the laboratory report, they have a little confusion in what is called as the test sensitivity versus laboratory sensitivity cutoff. See, there are two entities when a test like anti-CCP comes. There is what we call as test sensitivity. Test sensitivity, what it means is up to what titer the test can detect. In a sense, say suppose you are assaying a simple creatinine for easy understanding. Up to what level of creatinine it can measure? Up to 0.1 milligram per dl can it measure? Up to what higher level it can measure? Say up to 10 milligram or 20 milligram of creatinine per ml can it measure? That is what is called as test sensitivity. Clinical sensitivity is different. Clinical sensitivity is you call them the person to have a disease if it crosses 1.2 milligram per dl. See, here there is always a confusion in some of the test sensitivity. I have seen one of the lab which is reporting test sensitivity and taking the cutoff as test sensitivity as a cutoff for positive and negative. I mean, that's not the correct way to interpret it.
No, I think there are also a few kits which are available which are not actually anti-CCP. They are not the cyclic form of the CCP, and there are a few companies, I don't know whether, I'm not saying this particular test is like that, I'm not aware of what it is, but there are a few tests which are doing something called as a RACCP. So it's just a little bit of a variation of a rheumatoid factor which is done on an ELISA format, and they have labeled the kit as RACCP. So which they say it is equivalent, but the sensitivity, the specificity of that is much, much lower, and it doesn't have a cyclic form of CCP. So this possibly, because if you're saying Ranbaxy, maybe it is a proper anti-CCP, but
Yeah, they send it to Bombay or something.
okay. But there are variations of CCP which are not actually anti-CCP which are being done.
So he could afford biologicals. So right now he is pretty much under control. So, but,
Give the anti-CCP as per madam's suggestion. Suppose if it is taken as false positive, what is your diagnosis and how will you proceed?
so as sir told that it will be ankylosing.
Predict the test, sir. How will you proceed?
Sir, then I will proceed like ankylosing spondylitis only. Little bit confusion is due to anti-CCP only. Otherwise, it is a clear-cut case of ankylosing spondylitis.
May I say something?
Yes.
Let's say this patient, whatever you have said is obviously he had the TM joint involvement, features of ankylosing spondylitis, also had CCP positivity. Could you explain with some disease? Psoriasis. 1% population like rheumatoid arthritis can have CCP positivity, can present with peripheral arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. So my only concern was, that's what when I saw your hydroxychloroquine, why hydroxychloroquine was given to a person with ankylosing spondylitis, because sometimes psoriasis can present, the bony changes can appear before development of skin lesions.
Psoriasis would flare up with hydroxychloroquine.
See, the biggest challenge for any clinician in a rheumatological disease is, and as it's not just a rheumatological disease, no disease follows the rule book. That's the biggest problem. And especially now with we suspecting the disease much more earlier, with the available armamentarium of doing the tests, and the test being sometimes not absolutely standardized and reported, that has led to still more confusion in the diagnosis. But whatever, so in certain points you need to be very firm on the diagnosis. For instance, see, when you are trying to handle an SLE or a vasculitis with a renal disease, you need to be very firm on your diagnosis because the treatment course changes. Say for instance, if you little err whether rheumatoid arthritis versus ankylosing spondylitis and start him on etanercept, you are okay, you are done with the mistake. In essence, end game the etanercept is going to work whether it's an ankylosing or a rheumatoid arthritis or a psoriatic arthritis. But when you are erring, you need to be very clear that which way you are erring. You are erring with the safety of the patient being taken into due consideration. So that's where the lesson is. But certainly we do have presented even in the previous meetings quite frequently. Sometimes you find sacroiliitis, you find a peripheral arthritis with erosions, which is typical of rheumatoid arthritis, rheumatoid factor being positive, B27 positive, rheumatoid factor anti-CCP positive. Overlap is always a possibility, but you need to be choosy when you are trying to work it out on that. Thank you.
She is also a hypothyroid. Can it explain to some extent the ankle edema and the arthralgia can be explained?
Arthralgia can be explained, but not the sacroiliitis. He has a sacroiliitis which is typical, which cannot be. But ankle edema and arthralgia can happen with hypothyroid. No doubt on that actually.
Probably his hypothyroid would be familial. His father has some sort of autoimmune disorder, sister has some sort of autoimmune. It's a part of same autoimmune thing. It looks like the same thing as continued.
Thank you, Apurva.